Welcome to another episode of the Relief Podcast. My guest today is Jenna Bowman, and she's a person of many talents. And what I wanted to highlight first is, and I'll go more into your intro, but like when what I think is one of your superpowers is helping people clarify their message, right? And a lot of times people they want to work with each other, right? We're inspired by the same people, and we're like, how wonderful it is to hear, um, like who someone is and what they do, and how they connect with people, and how to put money in each other's pocket by adding value, right? And so, talk to me about that process that you guide people through when you help them clarify their message.
Oh, thank you for asking that. I think one of the big things is so many of us, especially as you know, like we're entrepreneurs, we have a little bit ADHD and we have more ideas than what we can possibly do. And it's literally just having a conversation and listening and seeing if maybe the 10, 20 ideas that come out in the course of a conversation, of course, this is a small time, or it could be when I work with them over the course of 4 to 5 different sessions, what seems to be the recurring themes. And often when I would say, hey, what is it that you want to do? And you would tell me, or what is your idea? And you would tell me. And I would go, okay. And I would listen, but I would know there's more to it. And so I would just keep, a lot of times with clients, it takes 4 or 5 sessions before I get to what I call the aha moment. And I just keep digging a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And it's like we know what that golden idea is. We know what our why is. But so often we haven't even figured out the words to articulate it. And so I just keep digging and digging and go, here's what I hear you saying, but I think there's more. And I'll ask another clarifying question, another clarifying question. Or I'll say, but you said this over here, which doesn't align with this, but what I think is this. So it's literally just almost like a big puzzle. And a lot of times it's the extraction of the pieces in order to put it together and paint that picture for my clients.
Oh yeah, I mean, like think about, let's say, the Super Bowl, right? Somebody is spending now $7 million on 30 seconds. That better be a clear message, or else you just wasted money.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we could always go through the Super Bowl commercials and go, I didn't understand that one, or that one was great. And, again, it's knowing your audience and always showing up. The best ones, I think, are the ones where you show up as a guide and you're not the hero of the story, but you're helping make somebody else a hero.
Oh yeah, I mean, the only one that comes to mind is the simplest ad of the entire Super Bowl, Kanye, or Ye, as others know him. He spends $7 million on an ad with no production other than, me, here's something I'm doing. And it was a math equation, inputs and outputs. He already had his brand, he already had his following. It's just a reminder to do business with him on this specific moment. And I think it has built him at least 20 million plus whatever, however that ripples because his brand. And, you know, that inspires me. Like what kind of what kind of journey, like a brand story that you say, this person or this entrepreneur, their their life has become a wonderful business.
Are you asking what other entrepreneurs I would say that?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, because we all read people's stories, like recently I met Annie Ann, right, from Orlando, and I didn't know who she was at all, right, and she gives me a hug. She's a person of faith, and she used to be Amish, so was her husband, and with $6,000 of seed capital from her father-in-law who believed in them, they started a business, right, and then because you sometimes you see a name and you're like, I didn't think there was a person behind that.
Right. Um, yeah, I think mission driven businesses are probably my favorite to work with. And that's all over the spectrum of that, because it's someone who started with a why and a mission to solve a problem and change someone's life. And I think to your point, I think one of my favorite, other than this podcast, of course, podcast is How I Built This by Guy Raz. And he literally just interviews entrepreneurs and their stories of, name brands that we know, but often started in a garage or, like some $6,000 and just shows the history of them and kind of the fight and how they got to where they are and the wisdom that they gained along the way.
Oh, and I think that's the ethos of where we're going here, not just today, but where the podcast has grown. And if I may, okay, so here's your introduction, and here's how Jenna Bowman is the head duck at J Duck Solutions, known as the Visionary Whisperer, helping visionary leaders and CEOs translate the whirlwind of hundreds of ideas into the next best step and clear strategies to grow their business. Jenna understands the struggle of getting stuck in the day to day task and losing sight of the big picture. Her passion for supporting visionaries comes from her own experiences, wishing for someone to help wrangle her thoughts and help with the next step solutions to move forward. Jana frequently uses the phrase, failure is not an option with any challenge. She takes that same grit and determination with every client to help them regain their passion and vision for their business. Having climbed the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, we'll talk about that. She thrives on adrenaline and equipping and serving others to use their God-given gifts. What a beautiful story, and I imagine there's still more chapters ahead. Uh, wow, what inspires you to climb mountains?
Well, the funny thing is, I think, as my dad said, because it was there, it was probably a reaction to COVID, the pandemic. And I was like, well, that sounds really cool. So it was actually part of a leadership program. So it was a 6-month leadership program where it culminated with 7 of us climbing the mountain together. So we were total strangers other than meeting over Zoom and learning leadership challenges. And the thought behind it, which there's so much to it, is that when you culminate an experience with something so challenging like that, it just embeds all the principles and the people with their, like, it creates a learning experience like no other. So I think it's like anything that we do that is way harder than what we think. And back to, you have to pull from a grit that you never thought you could. Incidentally, I'm really good friends with almost all of the people I climbed the mountain with. I even just had lunch with one of them today. So it really did cement that relationship way beyond just the mountain.
Well, that's awesome because no one climbs a mountain alone.
Figuratively and literally, yes.
Right. I mean, you're gonna need someone to help you with supplies. You need to look out for each other. You need to warn even the person behind you that there's a danger ahead. If there's loose rock or if someone got hurt, you need to know that. Um, and there's no room, not really much room for error at all, right? You have to follow the procedures or else there's dire effects. Um, but imagine okay, so what's when you get to the top, right, of a mountain, talk to me about how clear the vision is ahead, and how far and wide you can see.
Oh my goodness. So when I summited Mount Kilimanjaro, we climbed all night long. So we left our base camp at midnight and climbed all night. So I got to see the sunrise right below the peak of the mountain. And it was, to this day, it's one of the most glorious, amazing beauties. And as one of the guides said, he goes, you're probably one of the first seeing the sunrise in the world, just because of the elevation that we were at. And we were so high before it actually, gone to the rest of the world. And it was just so clear and pristine. And on the flip side, I would say that I was the most clear headed, and a lot of the things that I was battling with or thinking through, or baggage that I'd had emotionally, physically, whatever, was completely gone by the exertion, the climb, and I was able to leave a lot of that at the top and then come back down and ready to start whatever new challenges I had.
Wow. No, that's definitely again that rush, like you said, that you planned out, prepared yourself, readied yourself so that you can be in best condition as you can, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Because there's no I'll get back to it later. Like when you're on a climb, their only path is forward. Because if you fall back, you actually pull the team back too.
Right. And you can't leave. I mean, unless you're carried off and there's an emergency, but you got to keep going.
Wow. I mean, that's a consistency, right? And that's a consistency you've carried into your work too. And so, if I may add, just your branding, right? What inspired? Like, what does a duck mean to you?
What is a duck? Well, what does everybody do when they feel like their life is in clutter and chaos? They look at me without even knowing, and they say, "I need help getting my ducks in a row." But that wasn't even why I named it that. It started honestly with my love of Sesame Street. So Ernie and Rubber Ducky, they were best friends. They were loyal. They were companions. They didn't do life alone. They talked to each other in a very funny way, but that's a symbolism of how I work with my clients because I really invest in their business and I jump in and that's what so many, as we talked about climbing the mountain, you cannot do business alone. And I think so many entrepreneurs think we have to, but you can't. You've got to have consultants and people and groups and support because it's very lonely there. And that's what I love to be, that listening ear, that stable, that guide to help entrepreneurs and CEOs just be their best selves.
Wow. So that's quite the inspiring soundboard. And Sesame Street was a backdrop to my life. When watching like a Zenith wood panel television that was like with the two,
100%.
and I could even recite or sing if you challenge me, the Rubber Ducky song.
Probably can't do that, but we'll spare our audience.
Okay, fair enough. I'll write them in the show notes. But anyhow, like that is wonderful because like when people think of this, like there's certain feelings, right? That this is a someone you can trust, someone you can open up to, and share those hundreds of ideas, right? And then you would take your talents and be able to segregate them into what resonates the best and what speaks true to their values.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, I think like all of us as entrepreneurs, we have a lot of ideas, but not all of them are the best ideas for our company or for the moment or for the season. And I think having someone that's very trusted to say, "Hey, I hear you. I'm not telling you no, but I think maybe that doesn't fit with your brand, or maybe you need to start another company with that because I think it would actually dilute your business, not empower it or build it." And that's a very tricky thing because none of us really like to hear no. And so it's just that very delicate dance of helping extract their ideas and present the best option with all those ideas and how to move forward with their business and how it fits with their brand and aligns with their values.
Yeah, that it's like this magnifier, right? And if instead of introducing yourself constantly everywhere, right now becomes a message that's in your marketing, right? It makes the marketing more effective because when people compete for clicks, it costs a lot of money. And if your message is kind of choppy or inconsistent, it's hard to follow and it likely gets ignored, right? Because like you mentioned earlier, people have low attention. I do as well. Most people say that people have less attention than a goldfish. Right? That's like 8 seconds, so that makes it 7 or less, or it keeps shrinking. If something doesn't punch from the get go, we're lost. We don't know where to go. Um, and there's an abundance of choices for more or less similar products out there or services. So then, what would you say is a quality or two qualities that help separate one company from another when like trying to be above that noise?
I think the first thing I would say is to know your why. If you don't know why as an owner or even as an employee you're getting up in the morning and what problem and what you're doing, then all of the administrative, the paperwork, the marketing, and all of the words just become noise. Because if you don't really have that gut feeling check, so it starts with the top, the CEO, the founder, whoever's leading has to convey what that why is and then fit that vision. I think it was Ed that said you have to paint a vision big enough. Ed Milet, paint a vision big enough so that your whole team can see themselves in that. And I just has resonated so much to me because if everyone just shows up for a job, I had a mentor tell me one time, he would told us over and over, he was like, is this a job or a calling for you? If it's a job, there's the door because I don't want you on my team. If it's a calling, meaning you really know your why and how you fit in this organization, then you're welcome to stay. And I think that's, to me, that's the differentiation. And it comes out in the messaging, how you serve your clients, how you show up in reliability. It to me, that's the bottom line and the ripple effect of what makes you effective.
No, that's very well said because, no, and to add to what Ed has shared with both of us in lessons, not only get in the big, right? Think in there and imagine like what is the greatest magnificence and significance that you can bring to this brand, your message, and that we're on the verge of something historic, right? And like you said, if you're not into this as a calling, right, and you're just chasing ego and figures and the next car and the next house, I don't want you here, right? We're going to get all that, but that's just a means to the end, right? So what's the greater message is a company that lasts, something that you can be a part of for a good long time. Another thing that I, I would love your insight on is, I guess you're part of your repertoire is being inspired by brand leaders like Donald Miller, and I think you even have certification through his program. Um, Talk about the evolution of a brand because I think sometimes some companies refresh themselves and others get stale because and others hold who they are, like Jif, like the peanut butter. They don't need to evolve. They know who they are. It'd be
Right.
nice if they invested in healthier ingredients. I would buy it again. But as a kid, we would ship that to Greece. They didn't have peanut butter ingredients.
Right. So it's interesting, and that can go a lot of different ways. Like when you let's take the nonprofit sector, sometimes brands shift, and that's not a good thing because it goes completely away from the original values and what they stood for in the beginning. And that may be okay, but it may kind of segue so much from the founder's vision that they don't even look like what they represented anymore. And I think that's where you just have to go, is that who we want to be? For companies, you just have to look. I mean, I think Kodak is the best example of that. They were the leader in the market. They were fantastic, but they didn't evolve and change as the culture and technology changed around them, and they became obsolete pretty much. And so I think that's where some brands like peanut butter's peanut butter, that's peanut butter. I mean, you can take the sugar out, you can take the salt out, you can make it crunchy, but at the end of the day, it's peanut butter. And there's still a demand for it. But I think a lot of it just depends. Our world is changing so fast. Then are you meeting the needs of the people around you? And I think that's where you need to either stay the same, you need to tweak, evolve, or maybe you have another idea and you want to branch out and solve another problem.
No, yeah, but I think sometimes people like attach a brand with comfort and familiarity, right? Like, going back to the 80s, if I ate breakfast cereal, right, there'd be certain brands you'd go to, and maybe not all healthy, maybe a Captain Crunch, maybe a
Right.
Cheerio, something that was on the TV, and you're like, oh, buy me that, mom, you know, and of course, eager to please. But many parents across America would just say, sure, whatever that commercial said. Sure, if that makes you happy, I'll get you what makes you happy. And so that's the power of advertising. Now, when a small business is rising, what would you, what would be some guidance that you would offer to for a new brand when they're
As
trying to
far as
stand
brand
out?
and getting recognition,
Sure, like when they're trying to stand out and be known for what they do, that they do a good service, but just nobody really knows about them beyond just a few core customers.
I think the first thing is consistency. Like you just keep showing up, even though you don't look at the metrics and the numbers. But, you know, as we know in marketing, it's a numbers game. It's kind of like it kind of is a triple effect. But I think the other thing is figuring out exactly what you do and why and how you do it great. And I think we had a conversation about this another time. You may sell a product, you may sell HVAC, but everybody sells HVAC. Well, what is it that you do that is so different than someone else? You know, or what is the feedback you get from I show up on time? We clean up after ourselves. There's not a long wait time. We're respectful. You know, so it's those little nuances that I think that really are what make a company. Again, your why. Are you selling a product, or are you doing? You know, what is your motivation? Is to, you know, to help people. What you do, you get relief for people. So that's your motivation, and that's, I think, communicating that and really listening to your clients and looking at the reviews that they leave and what are the exact words they're using back to you. And you use those words because those are the inner needs you're meeting. You're often meeting not a, when you're marketing your new company, you're meeting needs like comfort. Like you said, you're meeting reliability. You're meeting like, oh, those are the internal needs that they really want. They want trust, reliability. It's the feeling words that you need to express in your marketing and really know why it is you're doing those. And then that will resonate more than a product.
No, that's a wonderful way to look at it, because it's, you know, people are a lot of times just worried about getting the next job done, growing the business, integrating new systems, adding a new employee, and some things kind of fall by the wayside, right? Like you talked about the HVAC business, right? You know, they actually call the white van truck that's not labeled, they call it the creepy white truck, right? And
Right.
then people hire brand experts, and there's quite a few in the industry. And with his proper rebrand, you know what that vehicle is. This clean vehicle with a clean service tech, that's just wearing the branding and a smile and offering you a wonderful customer experience. And like you said, keeping clean after themselves. And that's something that I like to stand behind as well. You know, that consistency, that knowing what you're going to get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you're going to someone's house, right? Or someone's business, right? You got to respect the space you're walking into, get your work done and get paid. And that's it. Like offer that level of consistency, no fluff, no talk, just get the work done, understand the situation and move on. That's the same thing we do with a real estate agent. It's understand people's situation. It's not just what's the price for my house. That's not a fit for my service. I'm not a price shopping service. That's Zillow. Go figure out. But when someone literally needs, like, is going through something, I'll hear you out. I'll listen to what you have to say, and then we'll see if we're a fit. If I can buy your house and buy it quickly, it gives you comfort. It gives you relief, as you mentioned, to move on
Mm-hmm.
to the next step in life. And, you know, in your work, like, imagine, like, how do you go about like you said, entrepreneurs are all over the place. How do you go about identifying their problems when trying to, like, outline their brand? Like, what does that look like when you work with the client?
So usually I will, you know, have a conversation with them or several conversations, and I'll have them tell me. And then I'll scour their website and look at everything that, whether it's good, bad, or any different. I'll scour all the words on the website because usually there's some tone that reflects. And then another great thing is to look at reviews. I read every single review because ultimately it's what their customers are saying back to them that resonates. That's really kind of a reflection of what they've given. And so, you know, for example, I was working with a client that was selling gear. They were kind of like an REI type of store. And I was like, but there's something more. There's something more. And even their wording was downplayed a little bit. And I really kept going more. I'm like, there's something more. There's something more. It's that why, that feeling. And I was like, I'm not getting there. And finally, I was like, what you do is a white glove service. Your clients are willing to pay more. And they're willing to pay more because you treat them like royalty when they walk in. You help them from beginning to end. Is that for everybody? No. But that's a unique difference that your staff is so educated and you educate your people in order to go do what they do. And so I think it's just finding that, like, literally, it's like a needle in a haystack sometimes. And often my clients don't even realize that that's what it is. And so it's just kind of a process of continuing to ask questions until I get to where I feel like it's that aha. And how I know it's the aha, I may think it's aha, but when I repeat it back to them, and literally it's like that huge light bulb goes off and they're like, wow, then I'm like, got it, we're there. Now we can keep moving forward.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. And that must feel great to help people overcome those obstacles. I mean, like, what else do you typically see people being stuck at? Like that they're not seeing?
Well, I mean, I thought a lot of times I had another client that said, I've had a vision for where I wanted to take my business for 5 years, had an idea of how to expand their services and even expand locations, put the name so it could be changed, but had no idea how to articulate it. So no one knew the vision or the dream because he couldn't put words to it. And so again, I went through the same process. I kept asking words and words and words and kept asking questions until finally one day he just started talking, almost those moments where nobody's around and you just start talking. And I was like, that's it. That's your why. That's why you're doing this. Okay, now we can use this as a foundation and keep building. But I think it's within all of us. I think whether it's just in personal life or business life or our careers, it's all in us. But I think the world is often puts us in a box and says, you are supposed to act and say and do this. This is what's proper. And I think unless we really allow ourselves to be unleashed, or we have a personality that just says, I don't care what anybody says, that we all have that opportunity to find that gem that's inside of us, that God-given gift that we can unleash and just find that joy and serve one another. And it looks different to everybody, but I love when I'm able to do that with businesses. And why I work with business owners is because I know that if I can unpack and undo when they're stuck or their business isn't going, if I can unleash them, every organization takes on the characteristics of their owner or leader. That's a proven fact. So if they're unleashed, then it just empowers the whole team to a whole new level, and then their customers are impacted as well. And so I love the ripple effect that I get to be part of.
No, yeah, that's inspiring because I mean, as you mentioned in your profile, you know, I think it's more like you are the person who you wanted help from.
That's exactly it. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, I mean, because like you are that service to others, right? It's a more of a custom approach. It's not like off the shelf, right? It literally stands apart. Um, and I think that's inspiring because when people try to grow their businesses, or first you have to question how committed is somebody to doing this, right? And I imagine not everyone's a fit for working with you, and that's part of the discovery process. Whoever we all work with is, it's not just, oh, here we want to work together. It's, well, you don't just pay me, please. Like this is our terms of engagement. You're going to put in some work. I'm going to put in some work, and we'll walk together on this process, right? Because as busy as people are, talk about the importance of slowing down and being methodical about building someone's brand story together with the visionary, and how important that is.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've working with visionaries and entrepreneurs sometimes speak a different language than like your COO or the tactical implementers in a company, which is fantastic. They all need to speak a different language, but so often they don't understand each other and it just creates more friction. So if the entrepreneur feels like he can't communicate to his team, he goes to find the people, which are often outside. A consultant hires random people to do the things he wants, to just do that idea, get it done, get it done. But that may or may not be in line with their brand. And so just having them and bringing the teams together is often what I find myself is just being the interpreter. Okay, visionary, here's what I hear you saying, and here's the idea I think you want to do, and here's a strategy. COO, hey, how does this fit in there, and how can we make this work? This is the why, and this is how I can see it being implemented in the business, and how do we carry that through? Because if it's not in alignment, then one, and a brand is confusing. I'm sure you go to buy something, you're like, that's a product doesn't seem to go with that business. That just seems weird, but okay. And it's confusing because it doesn't feel like it's in alignment, or it's off brand, or it could be even a nonprofit, or a church. They may do something. You're like, there's just a gut check. That just doesn't seem right. That just doesn't seem in alignment. And so I think, one, you just got to stick to your core values. And two, unless you're branching off, then you publicly say you're doing something. Like, you kind of make another segue, because otherwise it just fragments your business. It confuses your employees and your customers, and nobody really knows who you are, what you stand for, unless it's all aligned to culture, mission, values. And that's something that you and we talk about all the time, but it's I think we think it's talked about all the time, but so many businesses forget that piece of it and get stuck in the weeds of doing business every day.
Right. And so, because we're in the relationship business, right? We can all perform tasks, right? But so can a zoo animal, so can a circus creature. Like, we're more evolved, right? Like you was talking about evolved brand, you know, when and I've talked about, and I'm consulting with companies on this. Um, you know, like, why is somebody working here? They could work anywhere else, and maybe they can make a little bit more money doing the same job, or maybe less of a job. Why work here? What's the appeal, right? The person's nice. No, well, that's not enough. They follow core values, and it ties to the culture, and the leader's not a hypocrite. Oh, wow, that's something I can be a part of, right? And when studying, like, why people work somewhere, it's not just seeking recognition, but saying, hey, you know what, we're on a collective mission, we're a team, right? And as we enter this year, whatever this year is in 2024, right? And I think it's about persistence, right? And if you have a clear message, this, you'll survive, right? This is an investment in your future. Like, when people, and I imagine you correct people all the time, investing in branding, it's not expenses, right? You're doing it once, you'll tinker with it over time, but now when you've come out fresh with a new name, or strengthen your existing name, right, with some power behind it and some good outlines, I mean, that must be inspiring, that to you, Janna, that you're a part of that journey for people. And, talk about how what's like one of your greatest success stories that you'd like to share with the audience, so that it can inspire the new generation. Like,
Mm.
tell us.
Let me think about that. Gosh, there's so many. Um, yeah, I think it's that aha moment. That's part of it. But I think one client I worked with, um, I was able to redo the whole branding, the messaging, cast the vision, and I even went to their team and cast the vision. And my client was just in kind of that stuck life point. Even he came to me and said, I'm stuck. I just need a refresh, a reboot. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to articulate. So we kept working together. And once I got kind of that unstuck aha moment, he started coming to me saying, my clients are saying that they see a difference in me. They're just saying that I look more alive and more ready to go. Because again, it was that clarity that had come over him. And then the trickle down effect, his employees started reaching out to me and giving me cards and gifts. Now, it's not that they gave me cards and gifts, but they're like, you've transformed the place I work now. There's a purpose and a meaning for where I work. I get it. It's amazing. And so again, that's just where, and then again, all of the patients coming in, the business grew. And so to be part of something, to see almost hand off a thriving business and renew individuals' lives and renew the owner, the team, and then impact the great service that they get. I mean, to me, that's the reward right there.
No, it's inspiring. So that strength, you've clarified their why. Now they live free as their own selves, right? Now they're a beacon of light in their own company, and that obviously strengthens why you do this as well. I mean, so next question. Um, how do you overcome the struggle to, when people try to reach for their dreams as entrepreneurs? Like, sometimes people say, I have these wonderful aspirations, but I can't quite reach for the stars. Like, how do you help people stretch and get into that big?
Ooh, that's
Ooh.
a hard one. It kind of goes back to what you said before. They have to want to. I can help them. I can encourage them. I can give them tools, books or guidance or resources, or come alongside them with their brand or look at their business. But at the end of the day, they have to want to, and they have to be willing to take, because usually if it's an owner, they have to be willing to take a deep look at themselves and ultimately say they're part of the problem. And that's a really hard place to go, to admit that you're wrong or you're part of the problem, that your bottom line is not growing or working, or you have a high turnover with employees, or high, not you're not having return with your customers. So that's usually a really hard to get them there. But when they get there, then the slate's open to begin working and helping them grow and learn, and then the tools are there.
Oh yeah, that's where self-awareness meets emotional maturity and intelligence. When you again, that's probably part of the vetting process. Is, are you fully opening to just raw feedback? Because that's what you're paying for, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you're doing is great and then you fail, right? I'm not going to take money while you're failing. I'm going to help you succeed, right? I mean, that's the value that you bring. Um, yeah, so thank you for that. And if I may add, like, say, like, just like climbing the mountain alone, right? Why it's important not to run your business alone. Why it's necessary to have these communities that are supportive, consultants, coaches, mentors. I mean, this is how we met, is through a
Right.
community, right? And talk about the value that, because a lot of time entrepreneurs are on their own, right? Or they feel alone. Talk about
Oh,
these groups.
well, first of all, we are God designed for community. We are God designed for each other. Like that's in our DNA, no matter how much we think we can do it on our own. And even the American culture has told us we can do it on our own. You go back to almost every other country, like their culture's communities, 20, 50 people, and they're all in each other's business and they support each other. And but I think in business, I think we kind of figure out that we have to know marketing, we have to know this, we have to know this, plus the trade that we do. We have to know hiring, and we have to know everything. And then even as we grow and we have professionals who do that, well, typically the buck stops at us. Like we have to answer yes or no to a lot of different questions that we may or may not know or have the answer to. And then when you get to that point, I had a prospective client just this week say, I've never been in this position before, and I got put in this position, and it's really lonely. They just need someone to vent to, someone to go, what do I do? Or is this good? Is this bad? Or even just encourage you, like, you're doing great. Just, it's hard. You're doing great. Just keep moving forward. And I think it just is, we need each other. We need each other at the different levels, whether it's a team or, whether it's a community group, a mastermind, a consultant, a coach, different seasons, to just someone that can be confidential and help us grow, so that we can, be honest about our business, because there's a lot of decisions about our business we can't necessarily, you want to be transparent to your team, but you can't always be transparent about everything, because it's just not healthy for the company. But we're not meant to be alone. And how do you find that expertise? How do you find wisdom that you don't have? And how do you just stay motivated on days where you just don't have it in you?
Oh yeah, that's the ebbs and flows of life. These tides that roll in, and as our teacher, like Andy Frisella, would say, like you just got to be tough. You got to be mentally tough, as Ben Newman says, standard over feelings. And when I first heard these things, I'm like, these are words. And then I'm like, wait, they're succeeding. Follow it, and then you're like, and then you're following it, and you're taking like weaker steps, and then more short steps, and then stronger steps, and then more confident steps, right? And just like this podcast, right? First time I had a podcast, I couldn't put a sentence together, right? But now it's more centered. Now it's more clarifying, right? And so imagine the conversations we can all have when we're clear in our message, right? We can like support the families that support us and say, you know what, uh, our companies are going to succeed more now, right? We're going to have a better life because we're going to be more profitable, right? The families that come to work at your clients next year will enjoy more revenue, more stability, and even if it's an unstable time outside, more stability in your company. Wow, what I mean, the peace of mind is amazing, and the longevity of a brand, right? Like, speak to that. Like, let's say your first client. Let's say you worked, a few years ago with a client. You need to check in with them, like how they're growing and how wonderful it is to be a part of that.
Well, it is. And I think longevity comes back to knowing your why and just keep showing up and being consistent and growing with it. I'm working with a client right now who is a general contractor. He started in house painting and talk about movies, started in house painting years ago, and then realized there was more of a need when he went in, like, there was more things to fix. So he figured out how to do that. And then now he's kind of an all purpose, but family run business. He's, not a native to this country. He came and immigrated here, but he had enough to say, I want to do better. I want to serve more. And I'm not saying enough on my website. His words, I need to clarify my message because I want to show up better and I want to serve more people. And so it's just even like that of a family story of someone. So I guess I say that to be, to clarify your message, you don't have to be a big corporate person. You don't have to be a big entrepreneur, run a big store. You could be a solopreneur and a contractor, a plumber. It doesn't matter. Whatever business you're serving, you could be selling stuff out of your garage. If your message is clear and you know exactly why you're doing it, it leads to success.
No, that's I think what we all aspire to, because the struggles are in the effort, but as long as we know kind of where we're going, what we stand for, then we can kind of reassemble the ship stronger to be ready for these storms ahead, right? And because the ship is not meant for the harbor, but it's meant for the open ocean. So, Jenna, I really want to thank you for your time, and if you could share any closing thoughts, like if someone's at the crossroads right now and like how to reach you, like you know what kind of questions they should ask themselves, and um, any parting advice.
I would say don't give up on your dreams. Everybody has a dream and it's worthwhile. And if you need help clarifying that dream, ask a friend, ask a neighbor. And I think as we do in our community, you surround yourself by the people that support that dream. So that would be it. And then I think just continually just keep pressing towards it and invite other people into that, whether it's consultants, masterminds, listen to podcasts, continually grow and learn to feed your mind. And I think that will just help you continue to get from unstuck and bring clarity to the chaos in your life. So my website is jducksolutions.com. So you can reach out to me. Happy to talk to any of you and just kind of do that entry call, like, hey, I'm stuck and I don't even know what questions to ask. So that's sometimes the beginning point where we start with.
Oh, that's wonderful. So everyone, please reach out to Jana, because I think you want a strong supporter who's been through the struggle of clarifying her own message, and so now she's in a strong position to get you there. And the sooner you invest in this, the better for your journey, so that you don't waste years struggling to grow your business without a clear path ahead. So thank you, Jana, and all the best.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.